So, yep, it's an election year, and this shouldn't surprise anybody. But after the incredibly disastrous debate for Joe Biden,
with dealing with everything we have to do with, look.
We now have a decision that has been made from the Biden administration to go and grant $1.7 billion to GM and Stellantis to reopen or save plants, to save jobs, but not for the reasons you think. It's not to keep our gas cars, because after the Chevron doctrine got overturned, you would think maybe there's a chance that it's related to that. But the only way it could be related to the Chevron doctrine Supreme Court decision would be that he is now doubling and tripling down on jamming EVs down our throat with this decision to grant all of this money to Stellantis and GM. And I think that's all they show here, but who knows who else is going to get money. I think Ford's not getting money. But the whole purpose of this is to drive more production of EVs. So more EVs into the market. What's really insane about this is nothing selling. I mean, the entire car market is hurting right now. Gas cars aren't doing that great. Electric cars are doing horrible. They are not doing well. We've only reached a place of about 10% adoption in the nation, and we're already putting too much strain on our infrastructure as it stands, when we've got almost, 80% of our electricity is coming from fossil fuels still, 60%, and 20% from nuclear, and only a small, paltry 20% that's coming from renewables. So the electric cars aren't really saving the planet yet. And I think that we're very long ways away from having any viable infrastructure to be able to charge the cars. Here we are in summertime, and I can tell you, living in California, we will start having outages. We will start having alerts to not be running our appliances and our air conditioning in the middle of the summertime, and definitely not to charge electric cars like has happened the last year, and I believe the year before, that it's not, the grid's not able to handle the pull. We've got massive shift and adoption back to hybrids and gas engines. One article I read was over 50% of the people who own EVs are considering going back to ICE vehicles. And our government is saying, let's give a couple $1 billion to Stellantis, who's sitting on their own about $56 billion of their own money and laying people off like crazy to save money, to shore up their balance sheet, but also because they recognize the demand isn't there for the amount of cars they would need to build if they kept all those people on and all those plants open. So now the Biden administration,
we finally beat Medicare.
Don't want to make this political. The plan is to shove a bunch of money on these manufacturers. GM already decided not long ago to pull back their EV development and EV production. Yet now the Biden administration says, hey, look, we want you to keep producing EVs and double down, build more, keep these plants open. There's 8 states that are going to benefit from this, from these factories. But let me read this here real quick. The federal government is providing $1.7 billion in grants to help revitalize 11 shuttered or at-risk auto manufacturing assembly facilities, including two in Michigan. The White House and Department of Energy said on Thursday. The grants will go to projects across 8 states: Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, and Virginia. And yes, I think I said Illinois. I do that because I torture my wife. She says it's not Illinois, it's Illinois. But I always do that to torture her because she used to live there. So nonetheless, those are the 8 states that'll be shoring up their factories and jobs. How many of you want to, by a show of hands in the comment section, how many of you think this is a pandering to try and garner voters to help the Biden administration, who is currently not looking good when it comes to winning this election?
I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president.
And I could be completely wrong. It just is what it is right now. That go ahead and drop a bunch of money keep a bunch of jobs in place to build cars that nobody will buy, nobody is buying, while interest rates are too high to afford them. They'll all be too expensive. And Stellantis, who has already laid off all these companies and sent jobs out of the country, let's give them more money. That'll change their behavior. I don't know about you all, but this just seems really fishy. And even in this article, the point's made, this move comes as the president fights for his political life following a shaky debate performance 2 weeks ago, and has many in the Democrat Party calling for him to step aside. Listen, is this political? It feels like it's political to me. Are they? Why in the hell would they give all this money to build cars nobody's going to buy? I think that's the question. But I think common sense would kind of force us to default to, well, if he can save all these jobs, which I'm all for saving jobs, folks. I am absolutely all for saving. Like, I never want to see anybody lose their job. I mean, it's how they pay their bills, how they live, how they raise their kids, their family, pay for their house, build for their retirement. I mean, losing jobs is a horrible thing. But those jobs have already been lost, and now to give them money to build cars that people will not buy, is it or is it not just prolonging the inevitable? Because what's going to happen is, if they build all these EVs and start flooding the dealerships with all these EVs that are way overpriced, that's going to create a problem. I think the only thing that could happen to the consumer's benefit is there's such a glut of inventory that at some point prices have to dramatically come down. But I'll tell you what that would lead to huge losses on each one of those cars. And how would dealers make money? So it prolongs the pain on the dealers. So what are they doing to help the dealers out? Well, look, I am no dealer sympathizer, that's for sure. You know, if you watch my channel more than 2 videos, you know I'm not. But it's interesting because they're giving all this money to a company with $56 billion in the bank, Stellantis, and you got dealers out there that are hanging by a thread, barely able to pay their bills and survive, and can't drop the prices because they're into the cars for too much money. Interest rates are too high. It's a mess. So, do I feel bad about the dealers? Absolutely not. I think they've had this coming for a very long time, and I'm all for a reckoning of some sorts. But I also hate seeing service techs and people at these dealerships that are hardworking people lose their jobs. But the government gives all the money to the plants to build cars that won't sell, that dealers will be stuck with, that might end up at auction at some point. So I think we got a bottleneck. I think it's definitely a ploy at a time of the year, in an election year, where one party's trying to garner votes, and I think anybody with a brain can see through that. And I just don't see how this makes any logical sense. Now, if they said, hey, look, Chevron doctrine got overturned, let's go ahead and give you, without having to go to court and fight it, no more EPA fines, no more NHTSA fines for gas engines. Let's go ahead and just have a couple more years of strong sales in ICE engines, cheap cars, commuter cars with 4 cylinders in them that people can buy for cheap, $13,000, $14,000, and go to college or work their jobs or whatever, and we'll keep working the CV thing in the background. But that's not happening. If I was president, I would maybe say, okay, here's the deal. If I'm going to give you these grants, I want you to build cheap cars. You have to build cars so cheap that the American public can afford them. Now, is that a form of socialism when you're subsidizing the car prices? Probably, but at the very least, put the money back in the consumer's pockets and let them have cheap cars, because selling $70,000, $50,000, or $60,000 or $100,000 EVs just doesn't seem like a solution. So let me know what you think about this government intervention. Nobody's going out of business. None of these manufacturers are shutting down, yet they get a grant, they're calling it, which is like, here's some free money, which means basically all of us, our tax dollars are being used to support Stellantis unwillingly. And GM, I don't have a big problem with them. They seem to have gotten it, but they're going to keep a lot of their plants open now. And that's going to keep some jobs. So great. But if nobody buys those damn cars, I think the problem is going to just come back tenfold, and these people are still going to lose their jobs anyways. So what do you think about this story? What do you think about the situation? Do you think it's political? And if so, you know, you don't have to get political in the comments. You know, it's cool that you believe what you believe. I believe what I believe. It is what it is. But I still love y'all regardless. We're all American in the end, right? So do me a favor and like, subscribe, comment, share this video, share your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think about this Twilight Zone we're living in, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Just crossed over into the Twilight Zone.